My sister called, "You left me no choice," then called CPS on me during my daughter's birthday party. The social worker's clipboard trembled slightly as she stood in my doorway, her eyes scanning past me into the apartment where pink and purple streamers still hung from the ceiling. Behind her, I could hear the confused murmurs of parents gathering their children, Lily's 7th birthday party dissolving into worried whispers. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from the white-hot rage coursing through my veins because I knew exactly who had made that call. "You left me no choice." Victoria's words from 2 hours earlier still echoed in my ears, syrupy sweet with false concern, dripping with that particular brand of cruelty only a sister knows how to deliver. I should have seen this coming. I should have known that asking her to leave the party wouldn't be the end of it. With Victoria, it was never the end until she won. Let me back up. My name is Maya Chen, and I'm 34 years old. Though some days I feel ancient and others I feel like I'm still that little girl desperately trying to win my older sister's approval. I'm a single mother to the most incredible 7-year-old on the planet. And yes, I know every mother says that, but Lily genuinely is special. She has this way of seeing beauty in everything. The way afternoon light catches on a puddle, how a dandelion pushes through concrete, the exact shade of purple that makes her heart happy. She gets that from me, I think. The seeing, the creating, the making something beautiful from nothing. That's what I do for a living. I'm a freelance graphic designer. It's not glamorous, and it's certainly not the corporate law career my parents envisioned for me, but it's mine. It lets me be home when Lily gets off the school bus, lets me attend every parent-teacher conference, every class party, every moment that matters. After the divorce 3 years ago, when Robert decided that being a husband and father wasn't as exciting as being single and 25 again, I made a choice. Lily's childhood would be filled with presents, not presents. With love, not luxury. Victoria never understood that choice. Hell, Victoria never understood me. My sister is everything my parents wanted in a daughter. Successful, married to a surgeon, living in a sprawling house in the kind of neighborhood where every lawn looks professionally manicured because they are. She's a corporate attorney at one of the city's top firms, the kind of woman who wears designer suits like armor and wields her accomplishments like weapons. Growing up, I was always Maya, Victoria's little sister. Never just Maya. She was the star, I was the shadow. Our parents didn't help. Every dinner conversation was a referendum on my choices. Victoria made partner at 32, Maya. Don't you think it's time to consider a more stable career? Never mind that I was paying my bills, raising a happy child, building a life. It wasn't their version of success, so it didn't count. The party that afternoon had been perfect in all the ways that mattered and imperfect in all the ways that didn't. I'd spent the previous week making decorations by hand, paper flowers in Lily's favorite colors, a banner with each letter painted and glittered by both of us together. The cake was homemade, slightly lopsided, with purple frosting and her name spelled out in edible flowers I'd painstakingly crafted from fondant. We couldn't afford the trampoline park or the princess party venue, but we'd turned our small apartment into a magical garden, and Lily's face when she saw it that morning made every late night worth it. The neighborhood kids started arriving at 2 o'clock. 7 little girls in their party dresses, clutching modest gifts wrapped in colorful paper. The mothers stayed, as they usually did, chatting in the kitchen while I supervised the chaos of children playing pin the tail on the unicorn and musical chairs. These were my people, other single moms, working parents, women who understood that the best parties are measured in laughter, not dollars. Then Victoria arrived. I hadn't invited her. After our last interaction, where she'd suggested that maybe Lily would be better off in a 2-parent household and had I considered letting Robert have primary custody, I'd decided we needed space. But Victoria doesn't respect boundaries. She respects power, and showing up uninvited was a power move. She swept in at 3:30, 15 minutes before cake time, wearing white linen pants and a silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly rent. In her hands were 2 massive boxes wrapped in expensive paper with elaborate bows. Every head turned. Every child gasped. And Lily, sweet Lily, looked torn between excitement and guilt because she knew, even at 7, that these gifts would make the other children's presents seem small. "Surprise!" Victoria announced, setting the boxes down with a theatrical flourish. I couldn't miss my favorite niece's birthday. She's your only niece, I wanted to say, but I smiled and thanked her, trying to ignore the way the other mothers exchanged glances. Victoria had this way of taking up all the oxygen in a room, making everything else feel diminished by comparison. The gifts were ridiculous. A professional art set with supplies I knew cost hundreds of dollars. A designer dress meant for a child twice Lily's age. Things chosen not for what Lily would love, but for what would make Victoria look generous and make me look inadequate. Victoria, this is too much, I said quietly, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy in front of the guests. Nonsense, she replied loudly. Every child deserves to be spoiled on their birthday. Though I must say, Maya, you could have done a bit more with the decorations. Homemade is charming. But there are affordable party planners, you know. The room went silent. I felt every eye on me, felt the heat rising to my cheeks. The decorations Lily and I had lovingly created suddenly felt shabby, childish. One of the mothers, Jessica, opened her mouth to say something, but I caught her eye and shook my head. Don't engage. Don't give her the satisfaction. The decorations are perfect because Lily and I made them together, I said evenly. That's what makes them special. Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. Of course, I forgot how you romanticize poverty, making a virtue out of necessity. That's when something snapped, not dramatically. I didn't yell or throw her out. I simply stood up, walked to the door, and held it open. Victoria, I think it's time for you to leave. Her eyes widened in genuine shock. In our entire lives, I'd never directly confronted her, never publicly contradicted her. I'd absorbed every criticism, every subtle dig, every moment of humiliation with grace and silence. Not today, not at my daughter's party. Excuse me? You heard me. Thank you for the gifts. But Lily and I would like to enjoy the rest of her party with our friends. Please leave. The mothers were watching now with undisguised interest, several of them nodding in approval. Victoria's perfect composure cracked for just a moment. I saw rage flash across her face before she smoothed it back into wounded dignity. I was only trying to help, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. But I can see when I'm not appreciated. I'll go. She gathered her purse with exaggerated care, making sure everyone saw how hurt she was. At the door, she leaned in close and whispered so only I could hear, "You're going to regret this, Maya. I always tried to protect you from yourself, but you've made your choice." Then she was gone, leaving behind her expensive gifts and attention that slowly dissipated as we moved into cake and singing. Lily blew out her candles, made a wish with her eyes squeezed tight, and the party continued. The other mothers rallied around me, complimenting the decorations, the cake, telling stories about their own difficult family members. Jessica hugged me and said, "Good for you for setting boundaries." That took courage. But my hands were still shaking 2 hours later when everyone had left, when Lily was in her pajamas showing her grandmother the photos on my phone, when mine rang with Victoria's number. "You left me no choice," she said when I answered. No greeting, no preamble. "I tried to be subtle. I tried to guide you gently. But you're clearly not capable of providing Lily with what she needs. Someone has to protect that child." "What are you talking about?" "A child deserves stability, Maya. A proper home, adequate resources. I've been documenting everything. The apartment, your income, the secondhand clothes. I gave you a chance today to accept help, to let me provide Lily with what you can't. But you chose your pride over your daughter's welfare." Ice flooded my veins. "Victoria, what did you do?" "What I had to do. What any responsible aunt would do when she sees a child at risk." She hung up. 60 minutes later, the social worker knocked on my door. Her name was Patricia Williams, and she was kind but thorough. She explained that they'd received a report of neglect, inadequate living conditions, food insecurity, a parent unable to meet basic needs. Anonymous, she said, though we both knew it wasn't. She had to investigate. It was her job. I let her in, numb with shock and anger. Lily was already asleep, thank God, spared from seeing a stranger catalog our life for signs of failure. Patricia walked through each room, making notes. She opened the refrigerator, checked the cabinets, examined the smoke detectors and locks on the windows. She asked to see Lily's room, and I led her to the small space I'd painted lavender, filled with bookshelves I'd assembled myself and stuffed animals arranged with care on a bed I'd found at a yard sale and refinished. "This is lovely," Patricia said softly, running her hand over the handmade quilt on Lily's bed. "Did you make this?" "My grandmother did," I replied. "Before she passed, everything in here. I made it nice because it's what I can control. I can't give her a big house or expensive toys, but I can give her beauty and love and safety." Patricia wrote more notes. "Ms. Chen, I have to ask some questions. They might feel invasive, but they're part of the process." For the next hour, I answered everything. How much did I earn? Enough to pay rent, utilities, food, and save a little. Did Lily have regular meals? 3 a day, plus healthy snacks. Did she attend school regularly? Perfect attendance last year, above grade level in reading and math. Did she have access to medical care? Yes. We had insurance through the state program, all vaccinations current, regular checkups. The report mentioned that you couldn't afford a proper birthday party for your daughter, Patricia said, glancing at her notes. Something in me broke then. Not into tears, but into truth. I threw the party you walked into. Homemade decorations, homemade cake, games, and activities I planned. 12 children came, all had fun, all went home happy. The only person who thought it was inadequate was my sister, who showed up uninvited to make me feel small. That's who called you, by the way. My sister Victoria, who's punishing me for asking her to leave because she was being cruel. Patricia's pen stopped moving. Your sister. My successful, wealthy, perfect sister who has spent our entire lives making me feel like a failure because I chose a different path. Because I chose happiness over money, presence over prestige. She called you because I finally stood up to her, and she can't stand that I refuse to be ashamed of my life anymore. Ms. Chen, Patricia said carefully, I'm going to be honest with you. I've been doing this job for 15 years. I see real neglect, real danger, situations where children are genuinely at risk. This? She gestured around the apartment. This is not that. This is a clean, safe, loving home. Your daughter is clearly cared for. The report I received doesn't match the reality I'm seeing. So, what happens now? I complete my investigation. I'll need to speak with Lily's school, her doctor, maybe a few character references. But between you and me, false reports waste resources and traumatize families. If I find evidence that this call was malicious, there can be consequences for the person who made it. After she left, I sat in Lily's room and cried. Not from fear anymore, but from exhaustion and anger and the terrible weight of being judged by someone who should have loved me unconditionally. My sister had weaponized Child Protective Services. She'd turned my greatest vulnerability, my fierce love for my daughter, my constant worry that I wasn't enough, into a knife aimed at my heart. But here's what Victoria didn't know. Here's what I'd been hiding from everyone, including my judgmental family. 3 years ago, when our grandmother died, she left money to both of us. Victoria got a substantial inheritance. She was always Grandma's favorite, or so everyone thought. I got a smaller amount, maybe $50,000. Victoria assumed I'd blown it on rent and expenses, evidence of my financial irresponsibility. I didn't spend a single dollar. Instead, I invested it. I taught myself about index funds and compound interest. I worked extra jobs, evening projects, weekend contracts, and added to it bit by bit. I lived in that small apartment and drove my aging car and made homemade birthday decorations because every dollar I saved was a dollar invested in Lily's future, in our future. That $50,000 had grown to nearly $200,000. I'd been pre-approved for a mortgage. In 6 months, I was planning to buy a house. Nothing extravagant, but a real home with a yard where Lily could play and room for her to grow. More than that, I'd landed a major contract 2 months ago. Fortune 500 company, 6-figure deal to redesign their entire brand identity. I'd been keeping it quiet until the contract was fully executed, not wanting to count chickens before they hatched. But it was happening. My career was taking off in ways I'd only dreamed about. I wasn't the struggling, barely making it single mom Victoria thought I was. I was building something. I was succeeding on my own terms. And her CPS report was about to expose her in ways she never imagined. The investigation took 3 weeks. Patricia Williams was thorough and professional. She interviewed Lily's teacher, who raved about her academic progress and my involvement in the classroom. She spoke with Lily's pediatrician, who confirmed excellent care and regular checkups. She contacted the parents from the birthday party. That's when things got interesting. Jessica and 4 other mothers gave statements. They described Victoria's arrival at the party, her cruel comments about the decorations, her obvious attempt to embarrass me in front of other parents. They talked about how loving and attentive I was with Lily, how creative and engaged. Jessica specifically mentioned that she was a family therapist and could recognize toxic family dynamics when she saw them, and what she'd witnessed was a controlling sister attempting to undermine a devoted mother. Patricia also did something I hadn't expected. She investigated Victoria. When someone makes a CPS report, especially one that appears false, social workers look into patterns. Turns out this wasn't Victoria's first call. She'd reported another family 3 years ago, a colleague who'd gotten a promotion Victoria wanted. That case had also been unfounded. The pattern was clear. "Ms. Chen," Patricia said when she came for her final visit, "I'm closing this case. There is absolutely no evidence of neglect or unsafe conditions. Your daughter is thriving. You're doing an excellent job." She paused. "I'm also filing a report about the false allegation. Making a knowingly false CPS report is a crime. In your sister's case, given her profession and the pattern I've uncovered, I've forwarded my findings to the State Bar Association." I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt sad. This was my sister, the girl who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd let me sleep in her room during thunderstorms when we were kids. Somewhere along the way, competition and jealousy had poisoned her until she was capable of this. 2 days later, Victoria showed up at my door. No designer clothes this time. She looked haggard, scared. "Maya, we need to talk." I let her in but didn't offer coffee, didn't sit. This wasn't a social call. "The Bar Association contacted me," she said, her voice shaking. "They're investigating me for filing a false report. I could lose my license, my career, everything." "You tried to take my daughter away from me." I know. I was angry and She stopped, seeing my face. "There's no excuse. I called because you embarrassed me. Because you stood up to me and I couldn't handle it. Because if you were happy despite having less, it meant all my success didn't matter. It meant I'd chosen wrong." "You were jealous," I said flatly. "Jealous of my homemade birthday party and my small apartment because Lily and I have something you don't. We have joy." Victoria's composure crumbled. She cried, really cried in a way I'd never seen. "I'm miserable, Maya. My marriage is falling apart. My job is soulless. I look at your life and see something real, something I traded away for corner offices and client dinners. And instead of being happy for you, I tried to destroy it." I wanted to comfort her. 34 years of sisterhood pulled at me. But I thought of Lily asleep in her room, of the social worker cataloging our lives, of the fear that had gripped me for 3 weeks. I thought of every subtle dig, every criticism, every moment Victoria had made me feel less than. "You need help, Victoria. Real help. Therapy, not from me." "I know. I've already made an appointment." She wiped her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Maya. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I'll withdraw the report. I'll tell the Bar Association I made a mistake. The report's already closed, unfounded. And you can't make this right, not quickly. Trust is rebuilt slowly, if at all." "What do you want from me?" I thought about it. "I want you to get help. I want you to figure out why you need to tear others down to feel big. And I want space. Don't contact me or Lily until you've done serious work on yourself. If and when you're ready to have a healthy relationship, we can talk. But I'm done being your punching bag." Victoria nodded, broken. "For what it's worth, I looked into your finances during all this. I know about the investment account, the house fund, the contract with Morrison Industries. You're not struggling, are you?" "You never really were." "No," I said. "I was building. I still am. The difference is, I'm building a life, not just a resume." She left and I locked the door behind her. 3 months later, I closed on a beautiful 3-bedroom house with a backyard and a front porch. It needed work, but it was ours. Lily cried when I showed her the room that would be hers, windows overlooking a garden where we could plant flowers together. For her 8th birthday, we had the party in our new backyard. Twice as many kids, parents sitting on lawn chairs, homemade decorations strung between the trees. I'd made a 3-tier cake this time, each layer a different flavor, decorated with handcrafted sugar flowers. Jessica brought her family and other neighbors came. My parents even drove in, awkward but trying. They'd learned about Victoria's CPS call and were horrified. My mother pulled me aside and apologized for years of comparisons, for making me feel like I had to earn their approval. "You're an amazing mother," she said, watching Lily run through the sprinklers with her friends. "I'm sorry I couldn't see it before." Victoria sent a card with a handwritten note. She was in therapy, working on herself, hoping that someday we could rebuild our relationship. She didn't ask to come to the party. That was progress. I stood on my back porch that afternoon, watching my daughter's joy, and felt something settle in my chest. Peace, pride, the bone-deep knowledge that I'd done it right, even when everyone said I was doing it wrong. My phone buzzed with a message from my client at Morrison Industries. The brand launch was exceeding expectations. They wanted to discuss an ongoing retainer, possibly bringing me on as a consultant. My little freelance career was becoming something bigger than I'd imagined. I thought about Victoria's words, "You romanticize poverty," making a virtue out of necessity. She'd been wrong. I hadn't romanticized anything. I'd made choices. I'd chosen presence over presence, experiences over expenses, love over luxury. Not because I had to, but because those things mattered more. And in choosing them, I'd built something beautiful, a life filled with laughter and creativity and genuine connection. The money in my investment account, the house we now owned, the thriving career, those were bonuses. Proof that you don't have to sacrifice joy for success, that the two can coexist. But even without them, I would have been rich in the ways that counted. As the sun set on Lily's 8th birthday, I made a wish of my own, that Victoria would find her way to real happiness, that my parents would continue to grow and understand, that Lily would always know she was loved, not for what she achieved, but for who she was. And I wish that other mothers out there, struggling and judged and made to feel less than, would know this truth. You are enough. Your love is enough. And anyone who makes you feel otherwise is showing you their pain, not your failure. Family is supposed to lift you up, not tear you down. And when they can't do that, it's okay to protect your peace, to choose yourself and your children, to build boundaries that keep your joy safe. That's not selfishness. That's survival. That's strength. That's love.